health and vet stuff. Sheila is going to record. She's going to be quite muted today because she's still very sick and is losing her voice. So we'll just let her rest that. So Courtney, do you want to start, or Jamie, did you want to head it off?
Yeah, I'm happy to start. Oh, can everyone see that?
Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. So yeah, for those of you that don't know either of us, so yeah, my name's Courtney. I am a senior carnivore keeper at Taronga Zoo in Sydney. And Jamie Wheelhouse is one of the amazing veterinarians at Australia Zoo. So just a bit of an overview of just what we're going to cover today. So just a little bit about just red panda husbandry. Just the reason why we wanted to do that is just touch on, I guess, the day in, day out sort of stuff, so that you know, those of you that might join in that are new-ish to the species, just so that there's something there for you guys before we dive into, I guess, the more complex stuff that's been happening within the region's collection. And then Jamie's going to take over and do a summary of all the GI issues that's happening within our region from a veterinary perspective, and also just some preliminary findings from the vet survey. And then I'll jump back on and do a brief summary of the results from our from last year's keeper survey. So I guess just to briefly cover why we're here. So the term red panda digestive syndrome was, or the phrase name, was coined by Simone Vitale and Becky Thomason from Perth Zoo. So they actually wrote a paper after they themselves conducted a survey on this syndrome that they had experienced over a decade ago with one of their red pandas. So if you are interested in this topic, it's a really great place to start. It's got a really great summary of what they experienced and all the information that they collated. So yeah, this paper was based on the research that they did after they lost one of their male pandas over a decade ago. And then we started experiencing these symptoms in one of our females, Amala, who we since lost about 18 months ago. And after we were sort of chatting to a few different institutions within the region, mainly those that held the offspring of Amala, we realised that this syndrome wasn't just it wasn't just us that was experiencing this. So yeah, after chatting to a few different institutions, it was decided to hold a drop-in. So that was about, I think, Sheila, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like it was about December 2023. Ish. Yeah, cool. Yeah, so we just started to discuss this, and then we knew that there was a few individuals experiencing this problem, but once we all started chatting, we realised that there was quite a lot more than we actually originally thought. So this syndrome is not actually new. It's something that is experienced in other institutions globally. Mainly in the US, and I think it's also the Japanese population as well that has quite a large number, but it's pretty new to Australia. We've been pretty protected over here, and the cause of this syndrome, yeah, we don't actually know. So as a result of the previous tag drop-in, there was just a few of us that got together to just try and, yeah, dive a bit deeper into what's going on. So yeah, I'm just going to talk a little bit on red panda husbandry in general. Now, this is just what we do at Taronga Zoo. Obviously, take what works for you, take what doesn't. Everyone does everything differently, and that's the great thing about all of our organisations and the information sharing. So yeah, we feed our guys 2 to 3 times a day, so they get a mixture of like a pellet-based bar. With those pellets are soaked and made into bars that the pandas can hold, and also fruit and veg as well. These guys are then offered bamboo about 3 to 4 times a day, and each panda roughly gets ideally around 3 to 4 sticks offered each day. So there are variations of when food is offered and also how much is offered, and this definitely depends on the season and activity levels, because these guys are native to those really cold climates. Their season definitely increases in those cooler months. So with that increase in activity, which also coincides with the breeding season, we always need to increase their diet at that time of year and keep a close eye on their condition. During the AM feed of the day, we also always give our supplements or any treatment required. The only reason we do this first thing of the day is just because in case they don't get it, especially when it comes to medication, we want to make sure that we have the rest of the day up our sleeve to try and get those meds into them. Just basic cleaning. We just remove the feces once per day. This is a photo of our beautiful boy Keisho, who likes to assist us with some easy cleaning there, using the feces bucket all by himself. And yeah, for those of you who work with these guys, know that they make a lot of mess. Lots of, by far the most feces of any animal I've ever worked with. We clean the automatic drinkers every time we're present in the exhibit, just for us, because we have a lot of wild birds that absolutely love to bathe in the water bowls. But we also provide extra water bowls on those hot days. We can put these water bowls in the shade. If needed, we can add some vitrate if we think that these guys need it. We have a sprinkler system, which we utilise on hot days. If I'm honest, a lot of our pandas don't actually enjoy the sprinkler system. Some of them, especially definitely the younger ones that have grown up with it, would definitely utilise it. But for us, the ones that didn't grow up with it definitely seem to try and stay away. But the sprinkler system, is, even if they're not sitting directly in it, it definitely creates that nice cool breeze, which is very much appreciated for these guys in our very hot summer weather. Any extra maintenance is just performed as needed. We generally do our training at the 8 AM feed, because that's generally when all of these guys will always, pretty much guaranteed will always come down and interact with us, and sometimes at the 2 o'clock feed as well. All of our pandas are trained for hand injection, pet pack, tactile, and weighing at a minimum. So we do aim to weigh these guys 4 times a year. So we do this with every change of season, but we do, however, do it more frequently if we're monitoring weight. So for cubs, we do it every few days, if need be, or weekly for those that we need to keep a close eye on. We do perform body scoring now at the start of every month. Which is, something that these guys are a lot harder to body score than a lot of our other carnivores. You can just look at a lion and tiger and you can see, that's, a nice amount of ribs showing. You can sometimes see the hip bone. You can basically see just by eyeballing them. But for these guys, they're just a ball of fluff. So body scoring is something that can only be done by feeling them. And it's definitely for someone new to the species, an ideal body score may actually feel underweight, but you want to be able to feel, a bit of indentation between the ribs. You want to be able to feel those hip bones and make sure there's not too much of a layer of fat on them. It's just something that can be done by learning, correlating those body scores and how they feel with their weight over time, to get a really good idea of, what's going on with the animals in your care. So something else that came out of the last tag as well was developing a fecal chart, that in the hope that we can use this across the region, because for a lot of our animals, the quality of their feces gives us a really good idea of their health. These guys are a bit tricky because they actually basically defecate what they eat. But what we're ideally looking for is this grade 2 feces. So they're about an inch long, beautiful green, shiny if new, if fresh pellets. And this is what we would probably more term a bamboo poo. So these come from chewing and digesting all of that bamboo. The grade 3, so this is what we often see and what we would think is like a combination of bamboo and a pellet-based diet. And then the grade 3.5 is what we would call a sausage feces, and that this is definitely, we saw this definitely when they were on being fed a large amount of pellets. And you've obviously got the higher grades as well as you start to get into more the cow pat consistency or the pure diarrhea, which It's obviously concerning. And then we just got different materials, I guess, present within the feces. The fibrous bamboo, that's obviously something to just be aware of if it's something that's regularly happening over time, because especially if you've got an older panda, it may mean that their molars are worn down and they're not able to effectively chew that bamboo. So obviously if this is, or there may be something going on with their digestion. So if this is something that's happening regularly, it may be, a good idea to keep an eye on how they're eating. And then the fruit and veggies, this one's pretty common, especially when, for us at the moment, we have quite a lot of pumpkin and sweet potato in their diet. So we do see a lot of these fruit and vegetable poos. And then on the final page, this is something that ties into the GI issue. So you've got this white mucus fecal up in the top left corner. So this is something that we actually see at the end of an episode of this red panda digestive syndrome. So they think that this is, Jamie will probably cover this in more accurate terminology, but a buildup of the intestinal lining, and basically that intestinal lining is being sent outside the body. So this is basically what it looks like. And for us experiencing these episodes within our pandas, in our one, Amala, we would see these at the end of an episode, and usually by this time when we're seeing this feces, she's completely back to normal. You've got other feces where there's a clear mucus present or a clear mucus coating, which is not necessarily cause for alarm, and then also our porridge feces as well. Anytime we've sort of needed a female to be on like a high protein cereal or something like that to help boost their weight, especially when they're lactating, this is sort of the type of feces that you'll see, but this can then go to like a no form liquidy type of feces, which is probably a bit of a concern because it means that they're potentially that porridge is potentially causing some sort of upset. So it's hoped that sort of as a region we can maybe start to all use that fecal chart together to get a better idea of what's going on. But that's it for me for the husbandry side of things. I'm just going to pass over to Jamie.
Okay, let me get this up. Oh. Can everybody see my screen? No?
I could see it, but now it's gone.
You could see it. Okay, you can see it now?
No.
Yes? No?
No.
No? Let me try again. Okay, how about now?
Yep.
Okay, great. Thank you. So thank you, Courtney, for covering a lot of the background. And basically just wanted to give a bit of background to why red pandas are a bit unique. So they, have a largely herbivorous diet, but they, have a digestive tract of a carnivore. It's very simple. They have a simple stomach, a very short digestive tract, and no cecum. So they don't really have any modifications for digesting plants. And in the wild, they have a very seasonal diet. Their energy requirements vary across seasons, as well as their nutrient preferences. So they'll often be looking for higher carbohydrates in winter to help keep them warm. And then over the summer months, they've got higher protein and lipid intake to help support reproduction. The differences may not only be preferences, but also just due to seasonal food availability. And the large majority of the wild red panda diet is made up by bamboo, especially Arundiaria species, and primarily the leaves. The leaves are the most important component. They're available even during winter, and they're really abundant throughout the natural range. Bamboo is really high in fiber, low in fat, and low in simple sugars. And they often supplement this diet by also eating some of the bamboo shoots, but also a small amount of seasonal fruits and berries of the following plants, and they may also occasionally ingest small mammals, some birds, eggs, blossoms, and acorns, but it's quite a small amount of their diet. And so giant pandas are also similar to red pandas in that they have this herbivorous diet, but carnivorous type anatomy. And they're also experiencing similar episodes of mucoid feces with periods of anorexia. And the theory behind this, as Courtney discussed, is that a change in the microbiome may lead to a dysbiosis, and this occurs in response to diet changes and then causes inflammation within the gastrointestinal tract, damages the mucosal barrier, and then the excretion of these mucoid stools is proposed as being a gastrointestinal reset. So basically, the damaged mucosal layer and the altered gut microbiome are shed, and this allows for re-establishment of a new healthy microbiome and a new mucosal barrier to adapt to the new diet. However, ulcerative colitis has been found in these pandas at postmortem, and so there is pathology associated with this syndrome in giant pandas. So what I've done so far is just take a look back through available medical records from some of these pandas that have had these clinical signs, and look back at some of the diagnostic tests that have been utilised, if there was any common test results across these cases, and the treatments that were used, and if there's been any response to these treatments. So there's been quite a range in the level of diagnostic testing done across all of these cases. You can see that there are some pandas that had quite extensive testing, while others have had very sort of minimal diagnostic workup. And some tests, such as blood testing, has really shown very mild changes and inconsistent changes. Fecal parasite screening have largely been normal, and other tests such as urinalysis largely normal. But we've found that some of the more useful diagnostic tests so far have been ultrasonography, PCR or culture of feces looking for fecal bacteria, protozoa and viruses. However, there's been quite a wide range of pathogens that have been isolated from these cases, and so I think this is still a little bit hard to interpret at this point. Histopathology has been quite useful, and this is from samples either taken from biopsies or at post-mortem. So looking at the ultrasound, some of the really common findings have been free fluid, and when this has been sampled, it's usually been a modified transudate. There's also been changes associated with pancreatic inflammation and scarring. There's been thickening of the gastric and intestinal walls, and some cases have had enlarged livers. In terms of histopathology, eosinophilic enteritis was a really common finding. There have also been changes within the liver, such as fat and carbohydrate accumulation. And in one case, there was also changes associated with hepatic encephalopathy, which is neurological changes that occur secondary to liver disease. There have been pancreatic changes associated with both acute and chronic inflammation, as well as inflammation of the esophagus and the colon. Eosinophilic enteritis was the most common histopathology finding across cases, and basically this is a chronic inflammatory disorder where eosinophils, which are a type of white blood cell, accumulate within the small intestine. And there are a few different potential triggers, and it may be multifactorial. So some of the potential causes are food allergies, environmental allergies, genetic factors, parasites, which I think is unlikely just due to the consistently negative fecal parasite tests that we're getting from these cases. Another cause can be cancer, but there haven't been any neoplastic changes detected in any of these cases so far. There has been some pathology associated with the liver, and hepatic lipidosis has also been described in a red panda case previously, where they put these pandas on a feed trial and removed bamboo and supplemented it with a dehydrated alfalfa meal, and they developed hepatic lipidosis. Hepatic lipidosis typically occurs in response to a period of starvation, and that can be associated with a range of different underlying causes. And a percentage of these cases can also be idiopathic, which means that we don't know why they occur. The periods of anorexia can cause hepatic lipidosis, but they can also be a symptom of it. And so triaditis is it's a syndrome that involves inflammation of the intestine, the liver, and the pancreas, and it's typically seen in cats. The clinical signs often include anorexia, lethargy, weight loss, and dehydration. And the cause of this syndrome is poorly understood. The paper by Thompson and Vitale postulated that RPDS may have a similar pathological process to triaditis. And I think given that we are, in many of these cases, seeing inflammation in the liver, the intestine, and the pancreas, I think that makes sense. So what are some of the potential underlying causes of this? Could it be a virus? Is it genetic? Is there a hormonal influence? Is there an allergic component? Or is it related to the diet? I think a hormonal cause is unlikely given that we're seeing a pretty even distribution of cases across both sexes. And even in females that have had contraceptive implants, haven't shown a significant change in their clinical signs prior to or following implantation. Parvovirus is a pretty widespread virus overseas in red pandas, and it can lead to long-term subclinical infections. So there may be individuals that have this virus but don't necessarily have disease. However, it has also been linked to pathology with inflammation in a wide range of tissues, including myocarditis, nephritis, pneumonia, pancreatitis, enteritis and colitis, and dermatitis. The clinical presentation is likely to be multifactorial and is not well understood in terms of why some animals may be subclinical and why others may go on to develop disease. It's a virus that's shed in feces, and as far as I'm aware, we currently don't have the availability to test this in Australia. In terms of genetic factors, they could be playing a role. Looking at the pedigree so far, there seems to be a bit of a familial trend emerging. However, I think more investigation into the pedigree and potential genetic links is needed. Treatments that have been used haven't varied too much from that original paper by Becky and Simone. Still, overall, no treatment appears to be really curative. Antibiotics, anti-inflammatories, antiemetics, supplements, electrolytes, probiotics, gut protectants have all been used. And one of the biggest hurdles with this is that there's often poor medication compliance during episodes because the pandas are often off their food. And this one also makes it difficult to assess the response to treatment if they're not having 100% compliance with the medication. So where do we go from here? We probably need a more standardized diagnostic approach and a standardized way of recording data across the institutions. I think all pandas that pass away having a full postmortem with histopathology is going to be really valuable. Improving our data knowledge dissemination, making sure that people are aware of this and that they're able to report it if they're seeing these signs in their pandas, and potentially other further investigations into testing options such as that digestive enzymes in red pandas. It may be that we're missing some of the pancreatic changes because we're using tests that are designed for domestic animals. Looking into the red panda microbiome and comparing the affected individuals with normal pandas, and further investigation into those genetic links, as well as exploring options for virus testing, ideally within Australia, just due to the complexities of exporting samples. And just in regards to data recording, this is just a tool that we've been using to monitor episodes in our panda. So it's available on ZIMS. It's the Care and Welfare tool, and basically you can design your own template and your own parameters that you want to monitor, and you can give a grading to each parameter. And we've found it quite useful, and it's something that potentially you can share the template across institutions, which may open up a way for us to have a recording system that's quite uniform. And yeah, I'll hand back to Courtney. But yeah, just want to thank everybody for contributing to this so far, and yeah, just for showing an interest today.
Thank you, Jamie. That was, yeah, so informative and mind-boggling all at the same time. I'm sure we'd all love answers, but I think from both of our research, we've found that yeah, we're not getting any closer. Yeah, so in July of 2024, I released a survey to all ZAR Red Panda holders within Australia and New Zealand. So we have a total of 18 institutions and 15 participated. And I just want to take this opportunity to just, sorry, got a notification up. Yeah, I just want to take this opportunity to absolutely thank everyone that participated. I know that a keeper's time is so limited. We're all often doing lots of unpaid work after hours, not getting our lunch breaks, etc. And I know that this was just something on top of your daily tasks. So I just really want to say a huge thank you to everyone, because it was so incredibly appreciated. Without everyone's participation, yeah, we wouldn't know what we know now. So yeah, this survey just looked at husbandry, diet and GI issues within the region's collection, and we managed to capture data from a total of 36 individuals, which is yeah, really exciting. So I'm just going to take you over some of the preliminary findings that we found from the survey. So one of the things that I looked at was rearing. So as you can see, so results for all 36 individuals, there was no correlation between rearing and GI issues. Approximately, or over half, completely mother reared, and about, I think, 12 have been mother reared plus supplement fed. We have seen a big increase in the number of individuals needing supplement feeding in probably the last 5 to 10 years within the region. And this is just something to be aware of going forward, I think. Doesn't relate to the GI issues, but just something that when any institutions that are having cubs, it's probably a good idea, if you are using another institution's weights, to just check how they've been reared, because once you do start supplement feeding, those weights can start to increase quite a lot compared to a completely mother reared panda. And it's also important to look, when you are comparing weights, to only really compare to a litter that's the same size. So obviously a singleton will grow far quicker than, say, a cub in a litter of 3. So in terms of the number of issues, a number of individuals, sorry, with GI issues, so about 25% of the 36, so that was 9 cases, responded with a yes. So those 9 individuals have experienced GI issues. There was one possible and a one with just a one-off event at the time of the survey, but that one-off event, the symptoms did align. But for the most part, I've just focused on the 9 guaranteed yes responses. So there are a total of 7 individual pandas that we didn't gather the data on. So if you were to assume that all of them were a no, the total percentage of those in our collection with GI issues will drop to 21%. But given this is a 1 in 5, this is actually quite a huge increase, considering about 10 years ago we had maybe 1 or no cases. Although Jamie and I did exchange emails before, and I think there might be a few additions to the original numbers. So yeah, stay tuned. Yeah, as Jamie covered, in terms of sex, there's no difference. So 4 of the 9 were female, 5 were male. So this is consistent with research done around giant pandas, that there's no correlation to their gender. And those with symptoms ranged in age from 5 to 18. Symptoms were reported to have started from as young as 2 years of age, with an average age of around 7. There is some research that may suggest that these issues could potentially start with a stressor. So be that stressor might be a breeding event, or it might be a transaction. I definitely think there's perhaps some correlation in the data between a couple having been shown no problems at their previous institution, having been transacted, and then showing symptoms straight away, which is something really interesting. In terms of symptoms, so the most commonly reported symptoms were lethargy, reduced or no appetite, the appearance of mucus stools, so that's that white mucus stools, and not interacting with keepers. So for those that aren't familiar with this, the other symptoms to look out for are abdominal bloating or a distended abdomen, the abdomen feeling firm to the touch. This is really hard to determine generally though, because often an animal that is feeling unwell with this syndrome generally won't approach keepers. Abnormal gait or stiffness, abnormal form to the feces, so there could be diarrhea, and unusual smell to the feces, unusual resting location, sunken eyes, and also dehydration. In terms of episode duration, so 7 of the 9 experienced 24 to 48 hours duration. One institution said that the duration of their episodes were only about 12 to 24 hours, and another two experienced episodes of just a bit longer than 48 hours. The 24 to 48 hours is pretty consistent again with the research done around giant pandas and this syndrome. So the time of year that these symptoms present, so this is something that we already were aware of in our experience. We definitely saw a huge seasonality in this syndrome, and this seasonality also happens to giant pandas in the wild. But yeah, for those in the wild, as Jamie already covered, the sloughing of the lining is considered to be in response to a diet change. So that beautiful reset. But why would this happen, I guess, to captive pandas if their diet is all year round? So for most institutions, they would see the start of the symptoms around October, November, and then those symptoms would carry on to sort of December, January, and start petering off in February, which again, I mean, we all, for a lot of, probably about half of the institutions, we do experience quite a warm summer that's far warmer than these guys are actually built for. But given, I mean, for us, February is one of the hottest months of the year, and that would be when we would start to see a decrease in symptoms. So it's really interesting, because when you start to look at potentially, is it diet related? I guess in my mind, if it was diet related, then, or if it was just diet related, then you would see these symptoms consistently happening all year round. So there's definitely a few factors at play here. So whether it's just sort of stressor upon stressor, so the diet might cause inflammation, but then the stressor of the climate perhaps is piling on, and so that inflammation sort of builds. 5 institutions were able to observe not only a seasonal pattern, but also changes in the number of episodes each month. As we can see from the previous chart, the majority of institutions experience an increase in episodes during those summer months. We also noted that there was an increase in episode as Amala aged, and this is consistent again with research around giant pandas. Something that happened because of this, it led to regular discussions about the quality of her life, because as the frequency of these episodes started to increase, we're obviously mindful about the life that she was living and how often she was feeling well, as opposed to feeling really unwell. The mucoid fecal, I've already touched on this a little bit in the fecal chart. So of the 9 confirmed yes responses to the GI issues, 8 out of the 9 reported observing these white mucus fecals. There was one institution that had a one-off event that also observed the white mucoid fecal, and one of the possible responses had not recollected seeing this. But interestingly, when I split the survey into sort of two. One was just based on the institution and one was based on the individuals. And yeah, when asked, have you ever seen the above type of white mucus species in any of your pandas, 10 out of 18 institutions responded with a yes. So this is actually more just institutions than have said that they have pandas with GI issues. So if this is a sign of dysbiosis within the gut, then yeah, there's potentially far more than 9 that are experiencing this syndrome. They just at this stage may not be experiencing it to the extent that we were. So I looked at their diet. So yeah, every panda in the region is fed bamboo. No one feeds any of the pellets dry. The only reason I ask this, I know that some institutions in the US have like a panda biscuit. The pellets, yeah, majority of the institutions use a pellet and as the main form of feed, and this is soaked and formed into balls, bars, or a mash. Most of the institutions are offering fruit. This is all at varying levels. Some is just for training purposes. Some is, yeah, still a decent part of their diet, and yeah, lots of vegetables on offer. About 15 institutions offer protein. Some were varied whether that was just if the protein was taken up or not. And then any other browse or vegetation that may be offered. So on average, across individuals, sorry, another notification. On average across individuals, pellets made up about 60% of the DFI. This ranged from as high as 80% to as low as 20%. So there's still lots of variation. But 20 out of the 36 individuals captured in the survey received over 60% of their DFI as this pellet-based diet. Yeah, so in terms of the pellets, the vast majority of holders feed out the speciality feeds panda pellets or mash. As far as I'm aware, the pellets and the mash are the same ingredient. They're just the mash isn't processed into pellets, but I could be wrong. And then one institution feeds the same panda pellets but in a soy-free version. And since changing a few years ago to the soy-free version, they have actually seen a reduction in GI symptoms. So that's really interesting. And we've got a couple of other institutions with a few different pellets there, and just one other institution that doesn't use any of these pellets at all and has a completely different diet. And this diet has actually led to a reduction in GI symptoms as well, which is really interesting. So yeah, 5 out of the 9 of those with GI issues have fed the speciality feeds Red Panda pellet, and two are fed the soy-free version, yeah, which, as I said, has led to a decrease in GI issues. I think I've touched on some of this already. Yeah, I've already touched on all of that. But yeah, and 50% of institutions also reported that their red pandas catch and or eat wild prey as well that may happen to opportunistically fall into the exhibit. So in terms of bamboo offered, the most common was the Phyllostatus aurea, I don't know, whatever you want to call it. And the second most common being the Phyllostatus nigra. So the only basic difference between the two of them that my very non-horticultural knowledge can say is that the nigra is the black, we just call it black-stemmed bamboo, which to a lot of our pandas, this is like feeding chocolate. It can look poor quality, the leaves can be half brown, but they will, if that's available, they will absolutely gobble that up. Many institutions offer multiple species with varied acceptance, and 50% of the institutions also reported that their pandas eat vegetation grown within the exhibit. So whether that be wild figs for us, they sometimes eat some of the London plane tree leaves and grass as well. But there was quite a wide variety of different vegetation that the pandas would opportunistically Eat. Yeah, as Jamie touched on in terms of genetics, I don't have a slide for it, but there definitely is potentially a link there. And the reason why we sort of wanted to look into that is because our region is at a bit of a crossroad. So we are actually experiencing like our population is aging. So we do need to start breeding now. But we've got quite a lot of related genetics, and we would like to import some new genetics. But the prevalence of this syndrome, if it is a genetic factor, we do have institutions like the US that do have a higher prevalence of this syndrome within their collection. So our previous species coordinator, Sarah, said we wanted to have, I guess, a bit more information on if there was a genetic factor in this to make a more informed decision about where we can import from, and hopefully maybe import someone that doesn't have these genetics. But in terms, there's absolutely nothing that we can test for, so it's just collecting this sort of data. And there is a similar survey happening within the US. So there's a US researcher that's actually doing a PhD on this. So because it's a PhD, it's going to take like 3 years. I think she's only about a year in, but she's got a similar data set to what I captured. So once she's done, it'll be really interesting to see what she was able to pick up, if she was able to pick up any genetic link over there, and compare that data set to see if we can find out any more. So unless Jamie wants to add anything more, I think that's it. So just any questions if anyone's got any.
No one's got any questions at all? That was really informative, Courtney and Jamie. Thank you so much.
It's still
Hmm?
on. I think it's still on mute.
Yeah, she is on mute, but this.
Yeah, but you should be through there. It's all frozen. Oh, she's there. There we go. Are we all good?
Yeah.
Okay. Something happened. I think we all froze. But has anybody else got any questions about any of that? That was really informative. Thank you. Sheila's recording this anyway, so I'd say this will be available on the link or on the Facebook. I don't know if she's still with us.
Yes, I'm here.
Awesome. Well, I think that's it, everyone. So thank you very much for dropping in. Enjoy your afternoon.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Courtney. Thanks, Jamie. Brilliant presentation. And thank you so much. I know it's a lot of information, but I'm sure we're going to have some questions, and appreciate all your hard work.
Anything for the red fluff balls. Thanks, guys.